My name is Joseph Danlami Bagobiri. Kafanchan is relatively a young diocese created about 12 years ago. It is located in the northern part of Nigeria, which is predominantly Muslim. We have a population of about 900 to 1 million people. And then we have a Catholic population of about 250,000 Catholics. The Association of Episcopal Conferences of Anglophone West Africa. And it was devoted to reflection on the theme, the church and Muslim-Christian collaboration in West Africa. We were particularly, or I'm particularly happy to hear that about 138 Muslim leaders met recently, and then they issued a document under the name A Common World, and they were calling on Christians to open their hearts and their minds to Islam, and that Islam is not against Christians and Muslims are not against Christians. And for us, that is a very, very welcome development, something we are very happy with. We have not seen Muslims organizing such forum to come together and invite Christians. So when I was told that they met recently and in such a huge number with representation from the 5 continents, this is something very gratifying, a very positive development, which we are all happy about. The reasons for the conflict are not muchly our differences, but our inability to handle these differences. And this inability is caused by things like attitudes such as bigotry, intolerance, and very narrow-mindedness, which one can call fundamentalism. And once we are able to work on this on both sides, then I believe that the tensions and the conflicts will be greatly reduced. But the second area we can say is a cause to conflict will be the presence of religious particularisms or the use of exclusivist language in religion. For example, Dominus Jesus, that tries to define the uniqueness and the unicity of Jesus Christ and said, He is the way, the truth, and the life. There is no salvation in anyone else but in Him. Now, this is what I will call the presence of religious particularisms in religions. What we see in Christianity, we also are aware that there exists such kind of particularisms in Islam. But how can I, as a Christian, convinced of the fact that Jesus is the way, He is the truth, there is no other way to salvation, and yet I shall not see that as a reason for conflict with Muslims, but as a way that I can still hold on to this belief and relate in love and charity and friendship to other people. But I say that one of the greatest challenges is our ability to handle this. So briefly on the area of what difficulties do we have with regard to dialogue with Muslims. In the case of our diocese, we have is still this problem, the lack of reciprocity. This is, we give, but we don't get the same thing coming back to us, and that has always been a matter of difficulty. We are saying that if dialogue is about give and take, that kind of openness will be there. The Muslims in the year 2000, particularly the politicians among them in some northern states, decided to introduce the criminal dimension of the Sharia law. Now, take note, Sharia law is part and parcel of the Islamic faith, and it has two dimensions, the one on the civil dimension and the one on the criminal dimension. The one on the civil dimension is about the rights of inheritance. If a husband dies, how are his properties to be shared? So nobody is against that dimension of the Sharia. But in the year 2000, they went beyond the civil dimension to the criminal dimension, where they will say if a woman is caught in adultery, instead of using the laws of the land to judge her, they use Sharia and stone her. Or if somebody steals a goat, instead of basing it on the laws of the land, they will take a knife and cut his hand. And we said, no, this shall not be allowed, because it will mean having one constitution, having two constitutions within the Nigerian nation. But all the same, they went ahead for political reasons to introduce the Sharia. As it is today, it is not being observed, it is not being followed, and everybody knows that those who introduced it about 7 years ago did that with very terrible motives, the sole purpose of gaining some points politically. But as I told you, we are gradually coming out of this. There are more fora for discussion, for dialogue, and looking at differences and looking also for common grounds that we can work together as Nigerians, regardless of whether we are Muslims or Christians. Nigeria has felt the impact of the war in Iraq, because the conflicts that were going on frequently in Nigeria around 1999, the year 2000, and all the years after that. Um, Most of the ignorant Muslims were thinking the fight in Iraq was between Muslims and Christians, and they just saw United States as representing the church. And so there was so much hatred, and so many other things that some Muslims initially wanted to show towards Christians, until many people intervened, government intervened to clarify issues and said, look, this is not a religion, this is not a religious war. It is just a war based on certain interests between two people, and Nigerians cannot be part of it. And it helped to reduce the tension. But the war is quite an unfortunate episode in our human history. It has brought in so much pains, far more than anyone could imagine. If people had known initially that this is how much this war is going to cost not only America but the entire world, definitely people wouldn't have ventured into it. And it is our prayers that very soon a lasting solution will be found, and the world will never find herself in this kind of madness or war again. All this notwithstanding, at this plenary assembly, the conference we just finished in Freetown, Sierra Leone in June, devoted to reflection on the Christian-Muslim collaboration in West Africa. We were quite aware of these difficulties, and we encourage ourselves that despite these difficulties, dialogue continued to remain not an option but a necessity and an imperative that we have to pursue.